When you think of Europe, what comes to mind? Quaint old towns, delicious food, maybe endless regulations. It's a common stereotype. Europe is slow, overly cautious, and bogged down by bureaucracy. Compared to the fast-paced, move fast and break things mentality of Silicon Valley, or the sheer scale of China's development, Europe can seem like it's stuck in the past. But what if this slowness isn't a bug, but a feature? What if behind all the rules and regulations lies a powerful, hidden philosophy? One shaped not by dreams of a perfect utopia, but by the scars of repeated catastrophe? This is the story of trauma-informed governance, and it explains why Europe's quiet goal isn't perfection, it's survival. To understand modern Europe, we have to look back at its devastating history. The 20th century, for this continent, was a relentless series of worst-case scenarios made real. World War I didn't just kill millions, it shattered empires and redrew the map. The economic collapse of the 1920s and 30s followed, breeding desperation and fueling the rise of extremist ideologies. Then came World War II, a conflict of unimaginable destruction that left cities in ruins and entire populations displaced. The continent was a landscape of trauma. This wasn't just a historical event, it was a deep, collective psychological wound. The generations that rebuilt Europe did so with the fresh memory of total collapse. Their guiding principle wasn't, how can we build the best possible world? But rather, how do we make sure this never, ever happens again? This deep-seated fear of the worst-case scenario is the invisible ink in Europe's rulebook. It's the core of trauma-informed governance. Think about it. When an individual experiences severe trauma, their brain fundamentally changes. They become hypervigilant, constantly scanning for threats, prioritizing safety above all else. Now, apply that concept to an entire continent. Europe's political and social systems are designed with this hypervigilance built in. The primary goal is to prevent disaster, not necessarily to achieve maximum efficiency or growth. It's about building guardrails so strong that even in a crisis, the whole system doesn't fly off the cliff. This philosophy manifests in countless ways, from strict financial regulations designed to prevent another 2008-style meltdown, to environmental laws aimed at averting ecological collapse. It's a mindset that says, let's first make sure we can all survive. Then we can talk about thriving. This is why Europe invests so heavily in social safety nets. Things like universal healthcare, generous unemployment benefits, and robust pension systems aren't just about kindness. They are critical infrastructure for stability. From the perspective of trauma-informed governance, a person who loses their job shouldn't face immediate ruin. Why? Because desperation breeds instability. A population living on a knife's edge is more susceptible to radical politics and social unrest. By providing a floor beneath which people cannot fall, European nations reduce the risk of the social fabric tearing apart during a crisis. These safety nets act as societal shock absorbers. They might be expensive, and they might slow down the economy in some ways. But for a continent that knows what total social collapse looks like, it's a price worth paying for resilience. It's a collective insurance policy against repeating the darkest chapters of its own history. Let's talk about the European Union. To an outsider, the EU can look like a bureaucratic nightmare. Decisions take forever. Every member state has a say, and the rulebooks are thousands of pages long. But again, view it through the lens of preventing catastrophe. The EU was born from the ashes of war, with the explicit goal of making another war between its members not merely unthinkable, but materially impossible. How do you do that? You bind countries together economically and politically so tightly that they have more to lose, from conflict than to gain. The endless negotiations and compromises are a feature, not a flaw. They force constant dialogue. They prevent any single nation from acting rashly and dragging the continent into chaos. The bureaucracy is a peacekeeping mechanism. It's a slow, grinding, and often frustrating process. But it's designed to dissipate tension and build consensus, preventing the kind of nationalist rivalries that twice plunged the continent into world wars. This cautious approach extends directly to regulation, especially in technology and consumer protection. Think of GDPR, the EU's landmark data privacy law. While tech companies in the US were racing to collect as much data as possible, Europe paused and asked, what's the worst that could happen? They envisioned scenarios of mass surveillance, manipulation, and the erosion of democratic values. The result was a strict law that prioritized individual rights and safety over corporate profits, and rapid innovation. Similarly, the EU's approach to artificial intelligence isn't about winning a race. It's about managing risk. They are methodically creating rules to prevent AI from causing harm. From biased decision-making to autonomous weapons, critics call it innovation stifling. Supporters call it responsible. But in reality, it is just trauma-informed governance in action. Identify the worst-case scenario and legislate to prevent it from ever happening. So, what does this mean for the future of Europe and its place in the world? In an era of increasing global instability from climate change to geopolitical tensions, and the disruptive power of new technologies, Europe is cautious. Stability-focused model might suddenly look less like a weakness and more like a hidden strength. While other global powers are gambling on high-risk, high-reward strategies, Europe is quietly building a fortress of resilience. This approach has its trade-offs, of course. Europe may never produce the next Google or Tesla. Its economic growth might remain modest compared to that of the US or China. It can be slow to adapt and sometimes appears paralyzed by its own complexity. But the goal was never to win the sprint. The goal was to finish the marathon. In a world that feels increasingly fragile, the European project is a grand experiment in building a society that can withstand shocks. It's a bet that in the long run, survival is a greater prize than supremacy. The world often praises disruption and radical change, but Europe's story offers a powerful counter-narrative. It suggests that sometimes, the most radical act is to choose caution, to prioritize stability over speed and safety over spectacular growth. It's a philosophy born from the deepest wounds of the past, now serving as a potential blueprint for a turbulent future. The endless rules and slow-moving committees may not be exciting, but they are the guardians at the gate, standing watch against the ghost of history. Europe is not trying to build a perfect world. It is simply, and profoundly, trying to build a world that can't be completely broken again. And in the 21st century, that might be the most ambitious goal of all. Thanks for watching. If this made you think, consider subscribing for more deep dives into the ideas that shape our world.